Hey Dee, the other day I had a terrific idea for a teaser to start our episode.
Okay, and
And then I thought of it in the garden. When I came inside, I had completely forgotten it. So now I have no idea how to start this episode.
well, I bet that was a good one. While you think about it for a future podcast, let's get started.
I will get us started. Welcome to the Garden Angelus, where we chat about flowers, veggies, and all the best dirt. I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana. I have a suburban garden measured in square feet. It's about a third of an acre.
And I'm Dean Ash from Guthrie, Oklahoma, where I still have a large garden out in the country.
We are Garden Angelus because we love gardening, and we want you to love it too.
Yes, we do, and we aren't afraid to tell all of our gardening secrets, the good, the bad, and even the ugly. But let's move on to this week's episode.
Good morning,
Carol,
Dee.
the sun is finally shining in Oklahoma. In spite of our
That's
loss to the Indiana, in spite of the Thunder's loss to the
I
Indiana Pacers last night,
wa-
the sun still came up.
I was not going to mention basketball, the
I
NBA
don't
finals.
care.
We are probably the only two podcasters based in Indianapolis and Oklahoma City area. So, yeah. But you didn't watch it, did you?
No, I I haven't been interested in the Thunder for a while, which is going to make me lose every Oklahoma, follower we have. Sorry. Let's move on. How's your
Well, wait,
garden?
wait. Let's just go
Oh,
ahead and get rid of all the Oklahoma people because I watched it to the very end. And guess what? The only time the Pacers led was at
was
the
the
very
very
end.
yeah, it was at the very end. 1 point. I did get up this morning and ask what the score was. And I did check on the scores during the game, but Bill and I haven't followed it since the original
Uh-huh. Sure,
players and
sure.
just not
I
our
haven't
thing.
I haven't followed it as closely as I once did. And I've had to get reacquainted with the players. But anyway, let's talk about gardening. That's more exciting.
Yeah, I'm not interested in basketball. So that'll be our basketball thing. We're going to move on. All right. So what did you do in your garden?
So I've started pruning the shrubs, and this year I've decided it's more of a process. So I trimmed some shrubs, and then you know that weird chipper shredder I have that stuff goes in and goes drops into a bin. Well, I just decided instead of like taking the trimmings to the mulching place or putting them in the trash, I'm chipping them here and then I'm spreading them out around shrubs and stuff in the back mostly because I don't think people in the front would understand it. And so it's like arborist chips except it's shrubs.
It is
So
Arbor's chips.
yeah.
Still, it's
So
Carolist chips.
there you go. So I planted four shrubs that Bailey Nursery up there in Minneapolis sent me. There's two potentillas and there were two hydrangeas, and I had a spot in the back, believe it or not. I cannot believe I can cram more stuff in here, but
I
um,
can't either.
there was a place where I just have never really gotten anything going. So I thought, well, you know what? These need to go through a trial. That's why they call them a trial. So I planted them there. I found and bought another variety of thyme. So now I have 10 varieties of thyme. My goal is 12. And
Okay.
they're in the vegetable garden, which now that part of the vegetable garden cathedral is called the Herbal Retreat House. So, and then when I was down at Menards, as one is,
Yes.
you got to get a little of this, a little of that, a little something to fix something. They had clematis for $4.99. And I
I
needed
wish we had a
one.
Menards in Oklahoma. I really do.
Well, they're in little quart pots and they don't look great, but they don't look bad. And they were in a little
They're
4.99 pot.
4.99.
Well, and I needed a pink one for the pink garden because one of them died, and I just decided to get this one. And then I was looking them up because they don't say what color they are on the tag. And they had one called Nobel Prize or something like that, or
Like
Mr.
Nobel.
Noble. Yeah, I don't know why I said Nobel, Nobel, Noble. No, it's no. I don't remember.
It could be noble, but I don't. Anyway, go ahead.
And it was blue. And then I thought, you know what? I need three of those, and I'm gonna put them in front. These roses that I have that I'm not all that hepped on, they kind of get,
Mhm.
they don't bloom much. I thought, why not just plant a clematis by them and let that clematis grow up around that rose? Perfectly acceptable in Carol's
It's
messy garden.
actually, well, it's actually a classic pairing. So good job.
So as soon as we're done here, I have an emergency trip to the Menards to get those. I hope they have three of those nobles for 4.99 because That's the price of an
Oh,
annual, you know?
right, right. The cat
So,
just jumped on me and scared me.
so
He has this
anyway,
bad habit of missing his spot and then he claws you by
oh,
accident
so I
because
wrote a
he's a
couple of,
baby.
okay. I wrote a couple of blog posts. I've watered, I fertilized, I mowed. And what have you done this week, Dee? What have you to show for
Um,
yourself?
Mostly this week it rained. I mean, it rained and it rained and it rained. It rained again last night. In fact, it rained and there was a tornado nearby. I slept through the whole thing.
Well, you know what? I don't want to bring up basketball again because it might be a sore point with people that they
I
lost out
I
at the
already
last
know. I
second.
already know. They got diverted the first night. Is that what you're gonna
Yes, they
say?
had to go to
Yeah.
Tulsa because the weather was so
Yeah.
bad in OKC. I'm like, that's not a very nice welcome.
Well, it is the thunder. So there you
Yeah.
go. Anyway, mostly it rained here, but in between the rain showers, I went out there and weeded, mulched, weeded some more. It is so muddy out there in that one garden bed that has clay underneath my amended for years soil. And I was
Right?
out there pulling that terrible aster I hate so much. I started to literally sink into the ground. That's how
Oh
muddy it
my.
is. I was like, good Lord, this needs to stop for a while. And then I did do a tick reel that's a PSA, which went viral, which is nice.
Yes.
And because I want to get the word out about what you need to wear in the garden. And
I
then,
saw it.
yeah, it did okay. And I didn't even think it was that good, but several people in my community reached out and said that was really good. So that's nice to know. Harvested the peas some more, and I pulled up some of my lettuce that had bolted, and some of it's still good because I planted it different times and
Mm-hmm.
different varieties of lettuce. One of the lettuces, and I don't know the name of it, but it was one that was sent to us as a All-American selection.
Was it
That lettuce,
Bauer?
yes, it was. It was Bauer.
B A
Um,
U
that
E R.
Yeah, that lettuce was extremely slow to grow, but here's the good news. It still tastes good
Good.
and it not bolting. It's not bolting at all. So, all good things.
Yeah, I did pick a few more peas, and I think the strawberries are about done, and my lettuce is bolting too. So let's play favorites.
Let's do you. Oh no, we can't play favorites, can we? Oh yeah, we can. I'll go first. Mine are Tropicana canas. I love Tropicana cannas. I've always loved them since they came out. And I'm talking about the original one that has green and orange leaves with the orange bloom. There's also Tropicana Gold, Tropicana Black, and there might be another Tropicana too. And I love them because when the sun shines through them, there's nothing prettier. They look great with coleus. I'm looking at it right now and it's blooming, and so I'll have to get a picture of it for the newsletter. But it's just a great, beautiful plant. There's just one thing to remember, at least in my state. I'm sure cannas don't overwinter in your state, do they
They do
at all?
not. They do not
So
overwinter
in
well in the ground.
in Oklahoma in Zone 7, they do overwinter really well, except Tropicana. It's right in the name. That's a tropical canna, not a subtropical canna, which makes all the difference.
Oh,
So
it
don't
does.
expect them to overwinter, but they are really, really beautiful and they're showy, which I love. How
Yeah,
about you?
I saw a lady at Home Depot. She was had a big Tropicana type canna in her cart. Beautiful orange flowers. My favorite, I'm going with that straw foxglove that's out in my vegetable garden cathedral. Not the vegetable, it's in the Ploppers
It's
field.
in Plupper's Field.
Yes. And it self sows, it's Digitalis lutea, and it's sort of
Hmm.
it looks the color of straw or, pale, pale yellow. I wish it was purple, and I probably should weed some of it out, but it makes such a nice display that I just let it go. And it looks
I
nice.
would, you know me, I would let it go because that's how I am.
Yeah.
So I have a question about it. Do you have a picture of it? Because I don't think I've ever seen that
I
digitalis.
do, and I'll put it in the newsletter.
Cool. I can't wait to see it. Okay, question of the week. This is from San Isidore Flower Farm. And she's actually one of my clients, and she's up by Tulsa in the Tulsa area. And so this is what she said, because I did a little video of my pots on Instagram on my story. And she said, I have planted many of the same plants you have, but they are not growing or filling out at all. Are you fertilizing on a regular basis? All of the pots have fresh Happy Frog potting soil. She's talking about hers. I am perplexed. Okay, so I should have let you read that. Do you want me to answer it or do you want
Yeah.
to answer it?
No, you
All right.
answer it.
So I explained to her that I fertilize my pots each week on Sundays with a bloom heavy liquid fertilizer. And that means it has lots of potassium in it. And I do that on purpose. And then you can do organic or conventional. Because I was telling her, because I assumed that she wanted organic because Happy Frog potting soil is organic. And yes, it comes with bat guano in it and some other great stuff. And it's a really good start for your plants, like most potting soils are, whether they're conventional or organic. But there's so much water that goes through those pots that they lose a lot of their fertilizer. So that's why I fertilize them every week. And I started doing that, oh, I don't know, a few years ago, and I noticed that my pots were a lot better and just they handle things better. So you can do organic or conventional fertilizers. There's some really good organic ones on the market, and I sent her some links. But conventional is stronger, so you'll get a faster response, but
Right.
organic is great too. What do
So
you think?
I think that is an excellent answer. I try to fertilize on Fridays. Last week I did it on Saturday. It could end up that Saturday becomes the day. I don't know. Um, but yeah, every week, every 6, 7, 8, 9 days. We
Yeah,
should provide, if you had some links for her, we should put some of those in our newsletter. Some of our
I'll be
listeners
glad to.
might be interested in those links as well.
One more thing about that. I have not fertilized this. It'll be 2 weeks this time, but it was raining so much that I saw no reason to fertilize because it'll just go through the pot.
Right. Okay, I'm going to do a quote. We're going to talk about our flower topic while you get that cat. Listen, that's on video. We're on video. Get back in your chair.
I can't get the cat and get back in my chair. I'm gonna go put him outside.
Okay, you put him outside and
Oh, gosh. All right, I'm back. You go ahead and do
okay,
the quote.
okay. The power of finding beauty in the humblest things makes home happy and life lovely. Louisa May Alcott. True
So
thing.
this week's flower, it is true. This week's flower is M. M is for, and I put the first flower because I have never heard this flower called that, and it's Mizzou, and it's a succulent. Are you familiar with this
I,
succulent?
when I saw the picture on, because I looked it up on Proven Winners, I saw the picture Aptinia cordifolia, and it's actually in the daisy family, and it's called Livingston daisy.
Yeah, but it's kind of a succulent.
Yeah,
And I've used it for years in pots, off and on. Mizzou is the cultivar name. So people kept saying for my pots down in the end of the garden, they kept
right.
saying, "Hey, you need to put Mizzou in there." And I was like, "I have no idea what you people are talking about." So somebody finally sent me a link, and then I went, "Oh, that plant." I never
Ah,
even, I'll be honest, I never even knew what its name was. I just knew it was a plant we used in
yeah.
pots for
I
hot
I am terrible with
spaces.
I'm terrible with succulent plant names. I just don't really never really, they're trendy now, but they weren't a big thing when I was learning plant names back in the day. So,
Yeah, people just grew them and nobody really thought about it. Okay, and then you brought up Monarda, which is bee
but-
balm.
right, and it's an easy perennial, I think. It's a member of the mint
Very.
family. Big, usually pinkish, messy looking. They look like Phyllis Diller hair
Yeah,
on
they
the.
do.
They look like Phyllis Diller. Bees love them. Bees love
Yep,
them.
they do.
And that I have one. And this is I should have looked it up, but I do have one out there, and it may have been a trial plant that is a shorter because most of the time they can be upwards of 2 feet tall, kind of a
Yeah,
mid
they sure
mid
can.
part of the border. I have some that top out around a foot to 18 inches, which is kind of nice.
Uh-huh. I have several different ones, and over the years I've grown other ones. And I do want to give a shout out for Monarda fistulosa, which is the native Monarda, and it grows in my upper pasture and does really, really well with no help from me at all. And but yeah, I hear people don't like Monarda because it is definitely a spreader, whatever Monarda we're talking about, because they all are spreaders. I haven't
Right?
dealt with one that isn't. I mean, they are a mint. and they have
Mm-hmm.
square stems, which is your first clue.
Yeah, we could have done
Um,
this whole episode on mint, but
we could have, but we didn't. So you can totally pull them up. I don't
oh,
find them
easy,
hard to
easy
pull up. They're
peasy.
so easy. So I have one. It might be Jacob Klein that's out in my garden.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Jacob Klein is an oldie. It's a classic, I think, when it
Oldie
comes
but
to
a
Monarda.
goodie.
Oldie but a goodie.
But when you have really, really wet weather like we've been having, sometimes they do get mildew, powdery mildew. But if you grow them out in full sun there and give them some air circulation, they're less likely to.
So, Dee, I hate to say this, but M is for mildew, and I think you're in for a lot of mildew with all the rain you've been having.
Oh, you think? Yeah,
You
yeah, we
think?
are. Yeah, and rust. Don't forget rust. We're having a lot of rust too. And people are very dismayed by it. Anyway, I had to give everybody a little pep talk on my stories the other day, going, do not compare your garden to influencers.
No, they're cheating all over the place. Goodness
Well,
gracious.
they aren't telling you anything about what it takes to get that big handful of flowers or big giant thing of flowers. They don't tell you all their secrets.
Yeah, what book was I reading? Oh, I'll have to put the link into it and look for it. But Mrs. Wong mystery series.
Yes.
Well, the second book is, and I'll have to look up the title because it's on my Goodreads. She gets involved with some influencers, and all their secrets are coming out about how, like, the one influencer, she has one little section of her apartment where she can record, and the rest is a total disaster. All kinds of
Right.
stuff. But anyway,
Right. So just don't compare. Comparison is the thief of joy.
exactly.
Yeah, so just take that for what it's worth. Enjoy the pictures, the pretty pictures. And then I follow the accounts where they actually tell you how they achieve certain results.
Right, right,
So next one up is marigolds, which we're not talking about calendula, we're talking about marigolds, tagetes
right.
or
To
tagetes.
jetties.
And there's different types. There's African, which are those big bounteous ones that I like
Yep.
so much. And there's French. So the big ones are Tagetes erecta. The French are Tagetes petula, like petulant.
And my favorite, the signet marigolds, Tagetes tenuifolia. That's my favorite.
Easy, easy plants to grow from seed. Yes, occasionally they get spider mites, but just spray them off really good with a really hard stream of water, and that'll solve that.
Yeah, people are a little bit surprised, unless you buy marigolds like at the greenhouse in flats, and she does sell flats of marigolds, and I always kind of like sniff. So easy to start from seed. Who would buy a flat of those? But if she
Right?
had a flat of signet marigolds, I'd buy that and so fast. And I did start some. I had saved seeds from last year and I started and I got quite a few. And so I've planted them in the vegetable garden. I've planted some out by the mailbox. They'll take a while to get going, but then they'll be beautiful.
I have some planted out in my Vago pots next to my tomatoes. And then I also planted some of the African ones in my cut flower bed because people don't think about it, but those big, tall, long-stemmed African marigolds look really great in bouquets and they make great cut flowers.
Right.
So,
Now, some people
plus,
are
you know what? Deer don't like to eat them. So
no,
there's that
because
too.
I was just going to say some people are put off by the scent of marigold. It does not bother me. I don't think it's a bad
I
smell.
think it's kind of pretty.
Yeah, but it does, animals don't like it to eat. Uh,
Yay.
A lot of people plant marigolds because they think it's keeping away all kinds of other pests. I think that's a little bit of a wives' tale, but
It is.
I would just go ahead with it.
If you're going to do it for that reason, you want to pick the ones that are super smelly. And I don't know how you figure that out ahead of
I don't
time. So
either.
just grow what you like to grow and let it go.
That's
So the
right.
last one you mentioned was morning glories. Oh my goodness. You wrote, "Oh, do be careful planting morning glories." Yes, especially Grandpa Otts. Grandpa Otts is one of the most miserable yet beautiful morning glories there is. I am still pulling up, seedlings from 25 years ago.
My youngest sister planted morning glories and, the beautiful climbing up on railings and everything. And then it's like, how do I get rid of these? They're everywhere. And I'm like, you
You
just have to
don't.
keep pulling them.
Just pull them. They're easy to pull, but they have so many seeds. So many
And
seeds.
you're never
And
gonna
I
not have
no.
seeds drop. You just aren't.
You're just not. There's no way you can keep from it. But they look great on an arbor. They
Uh-huh.
really do. And they will fill an arbor even on the worst, hottest summer. So this just made me think as I was going through all of these plants that we mentioned should be grown in full sun.
Yes, we have only listed full sun things here. Is that okay,
So
Dee?
that's okay with me. I have a lot of sun. I have a yard full of sun.
I'm reminded when I think of morning glories of the book Gardening on Main Street by Buckner Hollingsworth.
Hmm.
And her house was it the way she describes it, and I think I've seen from pictures, it's literally like feet from the sidewalk. But she had a big arbor at her front door, which she planted with morning glories, and it was a showstopper and brought people to the door to find out, who didn't know, what is that flower? I have to have that.
Well,
So
and heavenly blue morning glories are about the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
yeah,
And
they
there are
are.
And there are double ones. There's just all different kinds that you can grow. But anyway, all
Be
right.
careful.
So, yeah, be careful. Just know that you're going to have them forever. Shall I do the next quote?
Yeah, because we could go off on a lot of other M's like magnolias and maples and monsteras, but we will stop there because nobody has all day to listen to us.
No, they don't. The old things, faded aprons, worn recipe cards, cast iron pans, they hold the kind of stories you can't buy new. Thomas Neeland.
True that. And I'm
That
a
is
bit
true.
embarrassed because I have a cast iron bean pot that was my grandmother's.
Uh-huh.
It sits out on my patio and is a complete rusted mess. It's more of a garden ornament, but I always think, that was grandma's.
That's okay. She doesn't care. All
No,
right,
she's deceased.
vegetables. She is deceased, but I meant in heaven she doesn't care. So mescaline.
Yes, I looked up some information on it. It's basically a mix of different kinds of lettuce and other greens that you plant, and then I usually harvest them when they're fairly young. Some people might call these spring greens.
Yeah, they're greens and they're all kinds of things. And they're all different kinds of mixes. And it became really, really popular, I don't know, 30 years ago, maybe. And it has
Go back
remained
a little
so.
further. If you're listening to
Even further?
Wikipedia, it says the 70s, which I would like to think was 30
Oh,
years ago, but the
mm,
70s, 50 years ago, D,
50 years ago.
in
Okay,
France,
and then
in France.
yeah, which actually you found on from the spruce that it's really translated from the Portuguese verb mesclar, which means to mix thoroughly.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And you can make your own mix if you wanted to. It would be so simple to do. The
Hmm.
the greens that you like. Tons of mixes out there. I think it was Botanical Interest. For the longest time, that was your thank you packet. When you got a bunch of seeds, they would throw in
Yeah.
some mesclun seeds because
Hmm.
in the spring, it's easy to take a little container out by the back step and just plant a few, and then you have them pretty quick.
You do. They grow very fast. And then you cut them, and then they keep on growing, and you get more until it gets hot.
Yes,
So
and then you're done,
then
as
you're
per
done.
usual.
And then you eat something else for a while. So, and oh, and I read recently, and actually this was in the Atlantic, which I don't read very often, but it popped up in my feed and it said, if you want to not get sick, don't buy those mixed salads anymore. It said stop
I
buying those.
I
And I
never
was
buy those
like,
salad mixes.
I don't buy them.
No.
Nope. I used to, but I don't anymore. So just that type of mix you don't want. But mesclun is great.
I I buy whole heads of lettuce and then I cut it up for my salad and then I have it in a bowl in the refrigerator. But I know it's like I've triple washed it and everything, so I know it's clean. But anyway, M is
Plus,
for
if you cut off the bottom of it first where it mostly touched the dirt, you're less likely to have contamination because that's the big issue from the
well,
soil. Plus, it
yeah.
makes it easier to clean. All right, keep going.
M is for mortgage lifter tomatoes.
That made me laugh. Yes, I used to grow that. I have grown that many times.
But there's a big controversy over mortgage lifter. It goes back to the
Oh, really?
1920s. And so there's several different types of mortgage lifters. And so there was a guy named, and I got this off of Wikipedia, William Essler in Barbersville, West Virginia in 22. He started uh, the mortgage lifter variety. And in
Mhm.
1932, he called it, he registered mortgage lifter as the name. But then there was
Mhm.
another guy who had another tomato, Radiator Charlie's mortgage lifter, which was another guy. He didn't die until his son died in October of 2012, Radiator Charlie's. So
Okay.
anyway, um, there's several different mortgage lifters out there, Radiator Charlie's and then the regular mortgage lifter. But it's a
So
big
I've
one.
grown both of those. And
Yeah,
here's the thing that, the story is the original story is that this person sold so many tomato plants they were able to pay off their mortgage. So henceforth, this was a mortgage lifter, right? We don't
right.
even know if that's true,
No.
but it's a great name and a great story, which is part of the excitement of heirloom tomatoes.
Yes,
Everybody likes a good story, right?
that's right. And I can see these two people like, you're a mortgage lifter. You can't use that name because I use that name. And
Hmm.
anyway,
It's like the Rutgers tomato, in that article we read about, will the real Rutgers please stand up? I mean,
right.
it does happen. Seeds do change, especially if you open pollinate them. All right,
Exactly.
so it's supposed to have a mild, sweet flavor. I can attest to that. I'll be honest, in my climate, it doesn't grow very well, either one of them.
I will attest that it's been a long time since I tried to grow mortgage lifter. It's just a big old, if you want a big old-fashioned tomato, get it.
Yeah, and there's plenty of big old-fashioned tomatoes out there.
There is. There's thousands of tomato varieties. But let's move on to another thing where there are at least hundreds of, and that's melons. M is for
Melons.
melons.
So many different kinds of melons. They require a good compost-heavy soil. Um, they Here in my world, they have a long growing season, so they're pretty easy to grow. And yes, they're affected by all the different creatures that eat all squash and melons, but they don't seem to be as bad here as, like, say, if you were trying to grow summer squash. They are easier to grow. But I have a funny story about melons. Tell me about how they do in your world, because you
So
have a
my
shorter
world,
season.
well, um, we do have a shorter season and they do need a long growing season. And so the problem with a long growing season like that is so much can happen before it finally gets to maturity. We
Sure.
do have a big melon growing area. It's in southwestern Indiana, where they grow things like the Decker melon near Decker, Indiana. And so there's
Which
some,
is a watermelon, right?
no, it's a cantaloupe.
It's a cantaloupe, which we are the only place in the world that calls it a cantaloupe. Other places they're called another
Musk
name.
melons.
Hmm. So we are known for Rush Spring watermelons, which are down in the south part of, I think it's southeast part of the state. Bill and I went to their watermelon festival once. Um, I grow cantaloupes better than anything else, if I'm going to
I
grow them.
I have grown an heirloom variety of cantaloupe several years ago. And I discovered it and I cannot think of the name of it. And I should have looked it up because it was from the 1920s. And I thought, oh, you know what? This is one that my dad and my grandparents would have grown down on their farm. And so it was
Hmm.
a smaller melon. So it was more of a personal size. You get some of those are really big. And it's like, I like melon okay, but you get one that's really big and it's like, that's a
You
lot of
can't eat
melon.
it all,
No.
right? And my husband loves cantaloupes, but they kind of upset his stomach. So, I grew one year called ambrosia, which is a
Uh-huh.
burpee variety. It did not upset his stomach, and he loves that. It was very sweet. It was a good one. You want to hear my funny story about melons now?
Yeah, I do.
Are you sure?
Let me drink so I have liquid in my mouth so I can spew it out.
It's not that funny.
Mm.
Okay, so one year I grew the three sisters down in this lower garden, and back when it was a vegetable garden instead of a flower garden,
Wait a
and I
minute.
got
The three sisters are corn, beans, and squash. Now go on.
or melons.
Or melons.
Yeah, they do both. So I grew corn, I grew beans, and I grew cantaloupe. And I got pregnant. And so I was really, really sick with that pregnancy. I just had really bad morning sickness, which lasted all day. And so the only thing that did well were the cantaloupe
Yeah.
because everything else, I didn't have time to hoe around the corn and all that kind of stuff. Someone just rang my doorbell. I will be right back. Just a
Okay,
second.
I'm going to hit the pause button.
Okay.
And we are back. And I
And
will
we are
not have to
back.
do a bunch of
Sorry,
editing.
everybody.
That's okay.
Nobody ever rings the doorbell out here. So the story is that and I'm trying to get my earphones to work again. All right, the story is I was pregnant, I was very sick. They were the only thing that worked, and boy, did they work. I probably had 32 melons out there. I mean,
Not
I had
30
melons
listeners or 40, 32.
32. I had melons everywhere. I was also a young gardener and probably planted way too many seeds. And I
Yeah.
would go out there, and the whole entire world smelled of cantaloupe, which nauseated me. So, anyway, it was the summer of the melons, and I actually told that story on what Brooke grows because Brooke is pregnant right now. She's on Instagram. She's
Uh-huh.
an influencer who actually tells the truth. And she right now can just barely go out there and garden. So she was sharing about how bad her garden looked. Oh, my garden looked that bad too. And I shared that story about it made me want to barf to even go out there. And I would just come
Oh,
back with melon after melon. And I was just like, anyway, abundance. So that's the end of that story. Sorry I had to interrupt it.
that's okay. Are we ready to go on to our bookshelf?
Yep, we
All
are.
right, I'll do the quote. Books have given me a magic portal to connect with people of the past and the present. I know I shall never feel lonely or powerless again. Lisa Boo.
Cool. What a great story, right?
It is. Did you bring
On
the
the
book in?
bookshelf. I sure did. I sure did. In the Garden with Jane Austen by Kim Wilson. This came out in 2011. And
Yes.
you brought it up last week because it's the anniversary of something. What is it the anniversary
Jane
of?
Austen's 250th anniversary of her birth is in December. So it is all things Jane Austen this year in
It
leading
is.
up
And
to
it's
it.
also the anniversary of the Pride and Prejudice movie, the newer one. And so, yes, it's everything's Jane Austen, which is like how I like my world to be.
Yeah, and I subscribe to a Substack from a woman she calls herself Jane Austen's niece. She's many generations removed, but her father actually grew up in Chawton House where Jane's brother lived.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
And
and
Jane lived
so
for a while.
and she lived and this niece lived there for a while before they all got kicked out as it I think it became a public building or a museum type building. So her Substack is mostly about writing and social media advice, believe it or not. But every once in a while, but she always dips into Jane Austen. But this book is really lovely. It's kind of compares to our other book about Jane Austen, which was the Gardens of Jane Austen, was really about all the plants. This is really about all the gardens. And Dia's showing us a picture.
Of Blenheim Palace. I've been there. I've been to Blenheim Palace. And it is extraordinary. And the gardens are extraordinary too.
So it says this book strolls through the sorts of gardens that Jane Austen would have known and visited: the gardens of the great estates, Blenheim Palace, cottage gardens, gardens in town, and public gardens and parks. Some of the gardens she owned or knew existed still in some form today.
Hmm.
So it highlights Austen's House Museum in Chawton, for example. And if you're interested in Georgian and Regency gardens, this is definitely a book you'd want to get.
Yeah, and it would be a good book if you're planning to travel to Great Britain because it could give you some ideas of places to go. I've been to some of the places in here. And it could also be a great gift book for the person who loves Jane Austen in your life.
Right. Now, we should
Um,
say it's from 2011, so I don't know. I know you can't get it on bookshop.org, but I think you may be able to get new copies still on Amazon, or you
mhm.
may be able to, definitely you can find good used copies, as they say.
Yeah, you certainly can, and it's well photographed, and it also tells you about different aspects of gardening in the time period, so it's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Like on page 49, it's got recipes for Mrs. Norris's dried roses.
Yep.
And so they've got bags to scent your linen. You take rose leaves dried in the shade, cloves beat to a gross powder, and mace scraped. Mix them together and put the composition into little bags. And that's from the Toilet of Flora, 1779, or Toilette
Mm,
of Flora.
toilette.
Toilette.
And mace is the outer covering of the nutmeg,
Yes.
and it smells a little bit like nutmeg.
So
The
yeah, they
kitten's back in here.
how would the kitten? Oh, because Dee came back in and she left the door open.
I did. My bad. Anyway, it's a really good book, and she loved gardens and writes about them all the time in her books. So it's worth reading.
Yes, In the Garden with Jane Austen by Kim Wilson, published in 2011. That is our book this week.
I'll do the next quote. The glory of friendship is not the outstretched hand, not the kindly smile, nor the joy of companionship. It is the spiritual inspiration that comes to one when you discover that someone else believes in you and is willing to trust you with friendship. That's Wolf, Ralph Waldo Emerson in our dirt this week.
You
So
found our
it's
dirt.
yeah, and it relates to last week, and I mentioned it last week. It is the lady on the Greek island who is 90, and in her name, I'm not going to pronounce it right, but we'll just say Yaya Anna, and she lives on the blue zone island of Ikra in Greece. And so her theory about life is wake with the sunrise, eat a plant-based diet with local wine because the Icarans make their own wine. It's a white wine, do laundry by hand, and spend time with your family.
Yeah. Well, those were the things that I picked up from the video that I
I
thought
think
she
that's
did.
true.
Basically, eat a simple life, lead a simple life.
Yeah, and don't worry about whether, you know, don't don't spend too much time on um the internet,
Yeah, yeah.
social media, because you know what? Everything yesterday was about two very famous men fighting. I'm just going to say it that way. And what does that have to do with any of us at all? Nothing.
Nothing. Well, here's the thing. It says we weren't we weren't built, or our brains weren't wired to have news fed at us 24 by 7. And
Yeah.
so the less time you can spend online, especially in the evening, I think, is it the better. The funny thing was, it didn't happen just now. When I clicked on that Instagram link, I think on my phone,
Yeah.
or no, it was been on my other computer. It's like the whole Instagram thought I was Greek and put everything in the Greek language.
That's funny.
All the
Well,
the
this one
menus.
this one didn't, so that was kind of cool. And it
Yeah.
actually the link I found was on a deal called Greek Gateway, which but it was taken from the Blue Zones deal. And I just thought that her life was really, really interesting. And
Yes.
she starts with oatmeal. Oatmeal's
Yeah.
really good for us. We should all eat a lot of oatmeal if we can.
All
So
right.
that's
I'll
our dirt.
I'll do a quote. So, what if instead of thinking about solving your whole life, you just think about adding additional good things one at a time? Just let your pile of good things grow. Rainbow Rowell.
Row. I don't
Just
know.
just add good
I just
things.
love that idea, letting your pile of good things grow. Yeah. All right, rabbit holes. It's not really a good thing. I've been on a true crime kick this week. I really have this thing, not about the crimes themselves, those are terrible, but I'm really interested in the DNA technology and how it's advanced and how they catch these bad people. It just makes me happy every time they catch them. And they're always so surprised. That's my
Yeah.
rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I watch one every day at lunch.
So
But
I
yesterday, a friend called and she was like, "Do you want to talk?" And I thought, you should turn this off and talk to your friend. So I did.
so I don't have any deep rabbit holes. I found 3 new Lost Ladies of Garden Writing just by going to
Good
the bookstore
grief.
yesterday afternoon during the rain, and I found one there. I'm very proud of myself. I didn't buy the book because I was like, oh, this one's available to read off the internet, so I'll just read it off the internet. Um, Spent an afternoon fiddling with my website. Spent a lot of time cleaning up my email subscriber list to my blog post, and I did manage to write a blog post about 8 types of mowing.
See, I'm thinking about doing an Instagram reel about weeds, about identifying the weeds in my garden and how I take them out of service.
That's a good idea. The other thing, and I just thought of it because I'm wearing this t-shirt that's got this dragonfly on it.
Mine has a daisy. Uh-huh.
Well, I saw this thing on, I think it was on Instagram where weird things show up, where this fisherman, they get like a fake dragonfly and he clips it to his hat. So it's like sticking up in the air. And supposedly, because the dragonfly is a predatory insect, it
It
keeps
is.
away the mosquitoes and the gnats and other bugs because they don't want to get near the dragonfly.
Hmm.
And so I just had this brilliant idea, Dee. I should
Yeah,
buy one of those dragonfly clip-on things when I go out to the vegetable garden and or working out in the garden, and then mosquitoes wouldn't bother me.
sure.
Don't you think that's a good idea?
I think wearing permethrin clothing would help with that, but that's just me personally.
Okay. Yeah, that too. Let's go ahead and do our garden commissions.
Mine are easy. Here's the kitten who's being awful. Weed and mulch, fertilize those pots, and Chelsea chop and deadhead. That's what I
Yes.
got to do this week.
I need to fertilize. I need to finish trimming some shrubs, mow, because its grass is really growing pretty good. Finish any Chelsea/Indy 500 chopping. Get everything planted. I have 9 perennial plants from Darwin Perennials that need to go in the ground. I need to find 2 more varieties of thyme, and I need to go back to Menards to get those 4.99 clematis that are calling my name. I hope
You
they're still
do. You
there.
better go do that quick.
I'm going to go right after this podcast recording, Dee. So let's wrap this up. Thank you for listening to The Garden Angelus. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. We publish every week on Wednesdays at 12 a.m. Eastern Time.
If you subscribe to our free newsletter, you get a link to listen to the podcast a whole day early and links to the products we discuss. Some are affiliate links. Plus, go over to YouTube and see us in person. Full episodes show up on Tuesdays.
And if you want to help support us, use our affiliate links. If you buy something after clicking through on them, we earn a small commission and it costs you nothing extra.
Or you can set up a monthly subscription through Buzzsprout or make a one-time donation through PayPal.
Thank you to everyone who has done so. It helps us pay for podcast hosting.
It was lovely to chat with all of you over the garden gate. Bye until next week.
Bye, everybody.